Hey everyone, John Doyle from OptixEQ. In today's video race of the day, I'm going to analyze race 8 at Saratoga on Wednesday, July the 20th. And this is a pretty tricky race. The whole card, couldn't really find anything that stood out, gave us an edge. But I just thought this race be a good race to handicap because you can go a lot of different ways. And I'm going to go through the whole field essentially so that you can get a feel for how to use optics and stuff, so forth. So I'm going to start with the plot. And the first thing you'll notice is we got a plot fit of red. Okay, and that's not the best of things, but we still can make use of this plot. First thing I notice is the contention is a snowflake and the speed rating is 10. So typically, okay, when you're using Optix plot and you see those kinds of parameters, you want to kind of really focus in on quadrant 1 right here, this box in the upper left-hand corner, and see who's in here, right? In our case, it's the 5, 9, and a little bit of the 1 are in there, okay? So that's typically what you want to do. You want to be looking there for that. And then typically, you know, just if it's general in terms of contention and speed rating, you know, you want to always focus on quadrant 1 first, but then squares afterwards, okay? Simple. I mean, even if you don't know anything about handicapping, I think you can look at quadrant 1 and you were to look at maybe the horses on the track, or what other way you do to evaluate horses and their price to make some determinations on, you know, who to play in a race. And then if none of those horses look attractive in quadrant 1, you would be looking for squares elsewhere, okay? So that's just a simple approach. But anyway, quadrant 1 looks pretty good in terms of a pace scenario here because it doesn't look like there'll be a ton of pace. Now, there's a situation here where I think the 2 will also be up here, but you know, we'll go through it. Even though he doesn't show it, it's only run 4 times, so he's a young horse, and I just think that horse runs his best races forwardly placed. So I'm thinking just from a plot perspective, those 4, 1, 2, 5, and 9 might be interesting, but I'm going to go through the evaluating the horses so you can kind of, you know, look how we do that. Okay, let's clear this. The other thing I want to point out is the Optix fig range of this race is 88 to 96. So I think we're looking like low 90s, kind of as a cut point. You know, you want horses that could reach low 90s or project to reach low 90s because you got some younger horses here that are getting older, and horses improve. Right about a 1.5 to 2 point Optix, about a point Optix fig, 1 to 1.5 Optix fig, month after month, starting like in their 2-year-old season. So up until they reach 4. So keep that in mind. All right. So let's go to the grid. That's the other product we have, and that's really kind of our past performance, interactive past performance. I'm going to look at the number 1 horse, start off with that horse, short summer dress. This is the one that was kind of hovering over quadrant 1. And let's look. The one thing I like to do is I like to look at races where the horses run well before, because I just could see like his last 3 races, horses figures are not where they need to be. He needs to run an improved effort. You know, can he run an improved effort? You know, there's nothing showing me that that's what I'm going to expect. I mean, he is getting a little bit of a refresher. I mean, that'd be one of the positive things here, right? Because it just seems like, you know, this horse is coming off a 54-day layoff, and when he comes off similar layoffs, you notice he does pretty good. He wins, he wins, he wins. Okay, comes off here, runs second. So this horse, this seems like this is a little bit of longer layoff, but these 60-day layoffs seem to suit him really well. So he's a horse you want to consider in here, just based on that. So there might be some, you know, improvement. Let's see. He didn't improve numbers-wise so much in that race, but in this race he did. That was going from the turf. That could have been the turf. So, you know, it's a little trade-off, a little bit light on the figures, but, you know, maybe the refresher helps him out a little bit. So that's one thing to notice. So the other thing I like to do is I like to take a look at horses, you know, when they run well. So what I look at these filters here, and one of the Optix filters is exact to finish. So if horse finished first or second, that's running pretty good. And you can see in the past, he's been able to run those 90s that we're going to need to win these races. But the one thing I noticed about these 90s come at fairgrounds, Indianapolis. So one was on the turf, one was off the turf there, Indianapolis. So It looks like his numbers are better when he's at the lower circuit, so I'd be more apt to like him more if it was a different circuit and so forth. But still, not a horse that I want to completely ignore, but I would say that I'm kind of mixed on him. Okay, and he is part of an entry, so you lose some of the value when you have this, because the other part of the entry will take money too, and the two of them will be a depressed price. The next horse is really interesting. Let me clear these filters, and that's Smash Ticket. Okay, so now this horse really showed some promise young, right? Around 87, 86. That's really good numbers for a 2-year-old, right? So you remember 1 to 1.5 points, you project it up. You're talking about 15. This horse, if a horse that runs 86, that early in his career, he could be running hundreds by the end of his 3-year-old season if the projection keeps going. And they thought so much of this horse, they put him in a grade 2 in his 3rd start, and he just bombed. Notice the regress. That was a good call by the note taker there at Del Bar, Miss Emily. So she projected this horse would regress, and he did. Came back. They gave him a long, long layoff. 287 days. Came back on a race at Lone Star. Let me tell you, I watched this race. This horse just exploded late. Just exploded. So much so that I liked this horse going into the Victory Ride. I was going to bet this horse, and I projected his odds to be really short. Now, he got scratched out of that race. I don't remember if it was a gate or early scratch. I forget now, but he was scratched. Mike Smith had even intended to ride this horse. He ends up now in a different barn. Now, I don't know if that was the intent all along to move him, but now he ends up in an optional claimer here versus older horses for the first time, or she ends up in an optional claimer versus older horses for the first time. That's my only concern, because this horse obviously is fast enough to win. That race was very impressive last time. She's going to be bet. She's 5-2 in the morning line, but yeah, my concern is this recent barn change and move, and again, another 51 days in between races. I could see or being a contender. It's just a matter how short of a price you want, and you feel all that confident in a field, in a race that I think has got a pretty good horses in it. Again, older horses. So older horses are first time. Typically, when these 3-year-olds usually catch up to the older ones by the fall. This is a little early, so just keep that in mind when you're comparing figures and stuff like that. So let's go to number 3. This horse I have no line on. Haven't seen these races. I don't know how to translate some of these Argentine races. This horse is running in South America. Just turned kind of 4. It's been laid up for 284 days. Gets Rosario for Belmont. That looks like a positive thing. Just an unknown to me. Morning line is 10-1. That's about right for me. Just typically knowing how often these South Americans come in and win that first asking. The other thing is this horse has been routing 9-10 furlongs. They've been doing well there. So my guess is this is a prep. Okay, so I'll probably be against this horse. The number 4 is Secret Love. Kind of got declining. If you notice, his speed figures look a little bit on the decline as the races got better. So you can see they've gone from 93 to 87, 82. They had some issues in the last race, traffic, shuffle. But the horse is kind of proven at this distance. The only other thing that I would say that it wasn't crazy about this horse was the plot. I don't like how this horse really kind of plotted out. If you look at the number 4, it's kind of weird plot in standard, and then really negative plot on surface and distance. So that's kind of the reason I'm kind of against this horse. The 10-1 or 15-1 is, if you like this horse, you want to take 15-1, but I wouldn't take anything lower than that. Yeah, the other thing is even though these were stakes races, you guys remember they were in state bred companies. So the number 5, I thought this was an interesting horse. If you remember how this horse plotted way up on surface and distance. Okay, so what does this mean, way up? That means it looks like her and the 9, look like first run, they're kind of close. Looks like the 9's got an advantage, but second call, this horse has got a big advantage. Even though it's a big circle, I think this horse has enough of an advantage to keep an eye on and watch Now, what I don't like about this horse was the last race. It was around a 47, didn't keep up. And typically when a horse runs the same race, at the same level, a race like that, I kind of skip. But sometimes these filly mares, they either get good or bad, and that's the way it goes. But this horse is changing barns, and he's changing to a low percentage barn, but this low percentage barn is sneaky with long shots. And also the fact that Ortiz gets on this horse, who won with this horse 2 back. And I'll tell you that Bonnie Lucas, I don't know her much outside New York, but she hasn't been really effective at spotting horses and getting horses to run and improving on horses in New York. So I'm just thinking that maybe with this switch in the barn, switch back to a win jockey, shorten back up to the horse's distance. Like this horse has, I think, been running out of, a mile. I don't think that's the most optimal distance for this horse. You can see mile, 7 furlongs, but mostly mile. And the other thing about this horse, if you go back to the Saratoga races, I thought they were very good. And 3 races with a 90+ figure, which we said is going to take the win. Now, this horse won 1 of those races, lost 2. It was verse-less. But still, I think this horse has got a shot to maybe try to get out there, either sit off the pace or go for the lead and hang around for maybe a piece underneath, first, second, and third. Big price, 12-1, low percentage jockey. He's not going to get a lot of play. Sneaky horse at a big price, number 5, and that is Honey Money. Number 6, this is a horse that, look how consistent this horse is, right? This horse is in the exotics most of the time, with the exception of like 1 race. It was at this level. Last 2 races have been at this level. I just don't know if there's upside. I think he needs a little bit more upside if he wants to end up in the win end, right? Seems like a horse that could settle for, could finish first, second, or third. Seems like maybe a good anchor in your exotics, but I'm not so sure for the win. He's another horse that's going to be plotting quadrant 4, which is not bad because this is the way this horse kind of runs well. If you want to look at how a horse runs today, he's in quadrant 4. So I'm gonna just go Q4 in his previous races, and in those races he's either finished first or second. So being in quadrant 4 is not a big deal for him. Neither is the pace scenario. So I don't think he's that detrimented by the low snowflake and so forth. He just kind of runs his race no matter where he's at. The number 7. Eloquent Speaker, is an interesting horse. It looks like they've been trying to work for a soft spot, like waiting for the races to kind of come off the turf. So that always concerns me. Because they're kind of like don't want to drop the horse, but they want to keep the horse at the same level, but they're looking for an easy race. That's not going to happen in this race, obviously. Last race at this level was kind of subpar. It was off an 84-day layoff, and now they tried that thing again, trying to get this horse in a race that was originally carded for the turf, and now 54-day layoff again. I don't like the spacing on this horse. Now this horse plots very well, square. And if you look at track profile wise, quad percentage gives you like how well these horses run against the track profile versus each other. He stands out. So, I mean, not a horse I want to completely ignore, but I think the 12-1 is about right. Now, the other thing about this horse gets back with Lynch. Now, this is not a big-time trainer. She doesn't win a lot of races, but I like this kind of angle when a horse, she did well with this horse. 2 wins with this horse. 1 in a stakes race, was obviously a New York bred stake race, but did well. So, she 12-1, 10-1 around that range. It's a long shot if you feel like with the change back to the barn, this is the kind of the right move for this horse. I just think again a little bit from recency, form, and the spacing. It's tough, but maybe this horse, if not this race, maybe they run this horse back, drop this horse to maybe another level or something, and give her a whirl later in the meet. But I'm not arguing with people that take the horse, especially with that plot. Number 8, Movie Moxie. This is a horse that is coming off a 273-day layoff. And even before that, the spacing was all messed up. And he wasn't winning at this level anyway, before the layoff. Franco is kind of a regular rider for Weaver. I just think this horse is going to probably need racing. And it looks like he might need a little bit longer to do his best. So maybe this is more of a prep. The number 9 was the one I talked about in the plot. And this is just horse got a nice progressive move forward. It really has done nothing wrong so far. As you can see, Optix speed figures just on the improve. Now it's going to get tested for some class, moving up in class. Should get a good outside stalking trip, second off a layoff. You know, this is a horse that looks like is probably going to be your second choice to the 2. And it depends how much they bet the 2, but this horse could be an option to the 2 in terms of wagering. It all depends on the odds, but it's a horse that again hasn't done anything wrong, just gets a class boost and should sit a good stalking trip. The 1A is the other part of the entry. We thought the 1 had a little bit of a look. This horse is dropping, but again, another horse that I'm really not crazy about spacing on this horse too, like, you know, these layoffs. The thing is because like you could see when a horse is off form, when you see when he's on form, he's running regular. Look at this. Look at his form when he's running really well versus when he's running really bad. All right. I guess he's not really running bad. He's finishing in the money at this level. I guess it's not too bad. But still, I just don't think the horse is at his optimal when he's got that kind of spacing in between races. Sometimes things don't work out with weather and stuff. I understand. This doesn't look to be the case. Now, you could say, well, he is dropping. Let's look at his plot again. I just want to just clear this out. Yeah, I mean, he's got a nice big square, so maybe another horse consider. I think in overall, I think the 1 is a better underneath. The 1A entry is better underneath. I just don't think the value is going to be there. 4 to 1 is that value to me. I just think this horse is underlaid at 4 to 1. This entry is underlaid at 4 to 1. So in review, I think the horses to pay attention to the ones in quadrant 1. The 9 looks like a contender. The 2 I think is going to be more forward. So all depend on what price you take. If this horse gets hammered, you may want to take a little bit of shot against him, but realize he ran really well last time. And then the 5 I thought was kind of a look of a long shot that maybe be able to hang in there. And if they scratch one part of the entry, like if they scratch the 1A especially, the 1 might be a horse that you can look at a price in race 8. Okay. So that's it. Race 8, Saratoga. Thanks for listening. OptixEQ, visit our website. Also, this race will be up in Focus, where we do the odds, the line, and all the rest, the wagering strategy. So check it out. You can get it through the Silver Plan. And thanks for listening.